I'm not gonna lie, I think our pumpkin field is cursed. At least that's how it feels right now. So just a couple weeks ago, I walked you through all the careful planning that goes into planting pumpkins. Planting on time, lining up our window with rain, getting the pre-emergent sprayed. Every little detail clicked into place this year. It was a kind of start that makes you breathe easier and think, yes, this is gonna be the year. And then, as it so often goes in farming, Mother Nature shows you that she has other plans. You see, in a normal year, our pumpkin field should look more like this. Wide, tidy rows with space for pumpkin plants to spread out and fill the empty spaces in between. Instead, what we have now looks lush from a distance. Almost impressive from the drone view, but up close, that green is actually a mix. It's pumpkins struggling shoulder to shoulder with weeds that we work so hard to keep out. The truth is, our pre-emergent never had a fair shot. It's designed to activate with rainfall, holding weeds back just long enough for pumpkins to establish themselves. Now, we got that first initial rain, but then what we weren't expecting were the weeks of record-setting drought afterwards. And without sustained moisture, our pre-emergent just couldn't provide a weed barrier like it's supposed to. And the weeds, well, they came in fast. Now we're caught in a bind. You see, pumpkins are notoriously sensitive. There's really no chemical spray that will target just the weeds without also burning up our crop. And 5 acres is far too much for one person to manage by hand. Homing this field would be darn near impossible. Standing here, I can't help but feel the weight of it. The fear of rows that won't yield any pumpkins at all. Of a fall farm stand that looks sparse instead of abundant. Of all the revenue and momentum tied to this one field. Now, I'll share what steps we're taking to fight back in just a bit. But first I want to zoom out. Because here's the thing, this isn't the first hard season that we've weathered at Two Sisters, and it certainly won't be the last. That's the reality of farming, and honestly, of life. You can do everything right and still have it fall apart. The question isn't how do I avoid setback, the real question is what do I do when it comes? Now, I'm far from an expert, but over the years, I've learned a few truths that help me survive seasons like this, and I think they might help you too. So let me share them with you. For starters, it's important to keep showing up. Build the habits now that support the success you're after. I'll admit, when things go wrong, it's tempting to pull back, to say, maybe I'll try again next year when conditions are better. But if there's one thing I've learned in farming and in business, it's that showing up consistently matters more than waiting for the perfect moment. Here's the hard truth that I've learned. When you're dreaming of future success, whether that's a thriving flower farm, a busy U-pick, or buckets overflowing with blooms, well, you don't suddenly become the person who can handle it the day it arrives. You build that capacity in the small, unseen moments when no one else is watching. I know when I first started selling flowers, one of the biggest misconceptions I had was that I'd just be able to crank out bouquets for a roadside stand, like it was nothing. I watched so many YouTube videos on bouquet making, and everyone made it look simple. Lay your flowers out, spiral them in your hand, and in 60 seconds, you can have a beautiful farm fresh bouquet that your customers will love. The reality? Well, I remember standing in front of those buckets of stems, hands shaking because I didn't have the skills to actually pull off fast bouquet making. I didn't yet know how to work efficiently, how to build color palettes quickly, or even how to pace myself through dozens of arrangements. But here's the gift in those hard, humbling days. Each attempt was practice. Each time I showed up, even when it felt awkward and slow, I was laying down the habits that would eventually allow me to move with ease. And that's the thing about farming. I think James Clear said it best in his book, Atomic Habits, and it's something that I think about often, but he said that when push comes to shove, you don't rise to the level of your big goals, you fall to the level of your systems. The person who can sell 200 bouquets on a Saturday in September, well, she was built in July, in the quiet repetition of harvesting, bunching, and arranging when nobody else was around. So when you're staring at your own messy field of weeds, whether literal or figurative, and you wonder if it's even worth trying, well, here's what I tell you. It is. Because showing up today isn't just about salvaging the season, it's about becoming the kind of person who can handle the bigger harvest that's coming down the road. The only way I got better was by showing up, season after season, bouquet after bouquet. I had to learn how to move faster with my hands, how to arrange with efficiency, how to simplify my designs without sacrificing beauty. It didn't happen overnight, but the habit of showing up built a foundation that allows me to handle bigger harvests today. That's why even in a year like this, with weeds swallowing up our pumpkin field, I still show up. I still cultivate, still invest in labor, still try. Because habits built in the messy middle are what carry you to the kind of success that you dream about later on. Okay, next, I encourage you to give yourself grace. Because beauty can still coexist even with the mess. As I've said, this isn't the first time that we fought weeds in this field. 3 years ago, we planted pumpkins here and had almost the exact same problem. Weeds everywhere, swallowing up rows I had envisioned being clean and tidy. I remember walking the field back then, frustrated and embarrassed. I kept thinking, surely this will affect our harvest. This fall farm stand isn't going to look as abundant as it has in years past. How sad it's going to look if the bins aren't full. That fear weighed on me because in my head, abundance meant perfection. Clean rows, big yields, everything looking exactly like the picture I built up in my imagination. And when I didn't hit that picture, I assumed that everyone else would see the failure too. But when harvest rolled around, something surprising happened. The pumpkins still came. Maybe not in the neatest, most impressive way, but enough to fill our farm stand. And customers didn't see the weeds or the drought or the missed potential that I obsessed over. They just saw bins overflowing with color. Families smiling as they picked their pumpkins and the joy of fall traditions alive and well. And that taught me something. Our customers' expectations aren't the same as ours. What feels like falling short to me can still feel magical to them. What I see as imperfect, well, they see as abundance. And that shift in perspective has freed me in so many ways. So now, when I walk through a field that looks messier than I had hoped, I remind myself, beauty can still coexist with the mess. Sometimes the perfect harvest isn't the one that you planned, but the one that still delights the people that you're serving. Moving on to number 3, think long term. Let the hard seasons grow you. The other thing I've learned is that difficult seasons are the ones that force us to grow roots. It's human nature. No one chooses to change when things are easy. We change when things are uncomfortable, when we're staring at problems that we don't want to repeat, and when we know something has to shift. Like a lot of you, I've lived this firsthand. For those of you who don't know, we're a 4-season farm, and in the winter, we host wreath and porch pot workshops. You can actually get a closer look at what winter looks like for us in this video here. But I'll be honest, those early years were a lot harder than I anticipated. We were breaking into a new market, offering new products, and my own ambitious self was pushing for a much larger winter season than we had any business pulling off. I made plenty of mistakes, like not having product ready on time. You see, especially since the pandemic, people like to decorate for winter earlier and earlier. And there we were, trying to fill workshops in December when most porches were already decorated with fresh wreaths and porch pots. I'll never forget standing there in early December, staring at piles of unsold wreath materials thinking, there's no way we're gonna move all of this product. We're gonna have to take a loss. But then it hit me. Thanks to the internet, our community wasn't limited to just our local area. That year, out of sheer necessity, we tried something that had honestly always terrified me. We packaged our wreath workshops into take-home kits, paired them with a video tutorial, and then shipped them across the US. And you know what? It worked. Customers loved it. In fact, the idea became the foundation of a product that we still offer today, our signature wreath kits. And it's allowed us to reach more people than I ever imagined. But here's the thing, I don't know if we would have ever landed on that idea had we not been forced into it by those tough, uncomfortable early years. That's why I try not to sweep failures under the rug anymore. Sure, they sting in the moment, but they also create opportunities. They nudge us into pivots that we might not have otherwise made. And those pivots, well, they're often the very things that end up strengthening our farm for the long term. Because the truth is, a business, like a plant, doesn't grow deep roots in perfect weather. It's the wind and the drought and the struggle that push the roots down deeper, anchoring it for the future. So let's circle back to the pumpkins. What are we doing now? Because really, what do you do when you're staring at 5 acres of pumpkins tangled up in weeds? You don't throw in the towel. You do what's in your control. For us, that started with cultivating. Now, 5 acres is far too much for one person to tackle by hand, but we knew if we did nothing, the weeds would swallow up our crop. So we made the call to bring in a crew. Now, it's not cheap, and there's no guarantee that the return will outweigh the cost, but in farming, sometimes you have to take those leaps of faith. It's an investment in giving the plants a fighting chance, buying them the space they need to vine out and compete on their own. We're also leaning hard into diversification. Pumpkins may be the star of our fall, but they're not the only thing that we offer. This year, I planted more ornamental kale than ever before. It's not glamorous, but it's hardy, it's reliable, and customers love to use it in their fall displays. We've also baled extra straw because nothing says autumn quite like pumpkins stacked next to golden bales of straw. Now, these crops, they don't replace the pumpkins, but they cushion the blow, giving us other streams of income so we're not relying on a single harvest. And finally, we're building backup plans. Over the years, I've learned that farming isn't about pretending that you can do it all yourself. It's about relationships. We're already in conversation with neighboring farms who may have surplus pumpkins this fall. Now, I don't want to have to buy in pumpkins, but I've done it before, and I'll do it again if it means that our farm stand can still look abundant. By reaching out now, before we're in a panic mode, we're making sure that if we do need to supplement, that those relationships are already in place. None of these steps guarantee a perfect season. They don't erase the disappointment I feel when I look across a weedy field, but they remind me that farming isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation. It's about doing what you can with what you've been given and trusting that the story isn't over yet. So, will this year's pumpkin harvest be record-breaking? Probably not. Will it teach us something? Absolutely. That's the beauty of both farming and life. It's all cyclical. If it doesn't work out this year, there's always next year. But what you do in the middle of the mess, it matters. It shapes who you'll be when the next season comes around. So whether your field of weeds is slow flower sales or empty seats at a U-pick or just the daily grind of showing up when you'd rather quit, don't give up. Keep showing up, give yourself grace, and think long term. Because these hard seasons, they're the ones that grow us. Now, if you're curious whether this pumpkin field will pull through, if we'll actually get a harvest this year or what it's going to look like, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll be sharing updates as we roll into our fall season, and I'd love for you to follow along and see how it all plays out. In the meantime, if today's video resonated with you, well, I really think that you'll enjoy this one right here. It's about how, after years of chasing success, I realized it wasn't what brought me happiness. Now, in that video, I share how quitting my full-time job led me to unexpected personal growth and helped me build a life filled with more purpose, peace, and intention. I'll link it for you in the end card here so you can check it out next. Let me just say thank you so much for spending some time with me today. As always, I can't wait to catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.